I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. And then Catherine is on the road right now, and I'm not sure she's able to say anything. She's our liaison back to the.
Brett, you went on mute.
Catherine, were you able to say good morning or?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Just want to welcome everybody to our virtual call this morning. I know behind the scenes, our leadership team has been working on getting these virtual meetings put together, and thanks to Brett for helping us coordinate this as well. So looking forward to being on the call and listening to our guest speakers today. And as we're adapting to these changes and to this new format, I just appreciate everybody being on the call with us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so our first speaker today, for those of you who have not done a lot of these Zoom meetings, probably all of you have, but just in case, if you have questions while our speakers are talking, if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, whether you're on a phone or on a computer, there's a little chat feature, and you can click the chat and you can post your question in there, and I'll be monitoring that and helping ask those questions to our speakers as they present today. And then we have several, and the best mode to be watching is in what's called speaker mode. If you see like a whole gallery of pictures right now, then you're in gallery mode, and you might want to switch. Up in your upper right-hand corner, it would say speaker mode if you're currently in the gallery. But that way you can just primarily see the person who's talking at that time. Okay, so to start with, we were going to have Jim Desmond from the County of San Diego, but he got called away last minute. But we do have his chief of staff, Darren. And Darren, are you able to unmute yourself and join in?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you all got me here?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning. Should I just jump into it, Brett?
Yeah, so yesterday you guys had a pretty important county meeting regarding, the status of businesses reopening and other things. And I'd love for you to give us an update of what transpired at the county supervisors meeting yesterday.
Sure. It's been an interesting week. So today is Wednesday, just in case for everyone keeping track. Monday, the governor announced that he would be freeing up to some degree the opening of businesses, and he mentioned Friday as a date to do that. And then he mentioned a couple of business types along the way. He mentioned retail businesses for curbside pickup, and specifically toy stores, bookstores, and even mentioned florists in time for Mother's Day. And then he talked about local control over how that's going to open up. That was Monday. He also said, and this is important, that the guidance, the actual details of what would be allowed and how it would be allowed are going to come out on Thursday, which is an interesting one, especially if things can open up Friday, and to some degree that gives all of us very little time to figure that out. But so then yesterday there was a Board of Supervisors meeting, and we have always been planning and preparing as though when things open up, we're going to be ready. And at the board hearing, one of the main things the board did for business is they adopted a framework for businesses. And Crystal Jabara, I should say, is also on here from our staff. Where'd she go? I did not follow directions, and I have everyone on my screen, but Crystal's here and is going to post for you and send you a template for businesses to be able to fill out, at which time, there it is on the chat, at which time your business is allowed to open. You'll be, the county's created this framework, this template. This is the thing that we recommend businesses now use to determine how they're going to meet the COVID guidelines and standards. These basically are the standards. Interestingly, The county has said, we're not requiring anyone to submit it to us. You fill it out, you're going to post it, you're going to abide by it, but it's all self-policing. It's all do the right thing, and let's keep our employees and our customers safe. And so they're very broad and general guidelines, and you'll see it's a short form, but it's everything that you've been hearing, from face coverings to social distancing and everything else. The other thing that the county did, because we've been good stewards and things are going well, the board voted to send a letter to the governor asking for complete and total local control over opening things up. We feel like we know our region best, and we can get things maybe going a little more quickly than they otherwise would. So that's a letter we're sending to the governor, and we're always pushing for that to get everyone going. The governor has said that he will require a plan for each jurisdiction. It's not just a free-for-all, flip a switch and go. And that plan will include reports on how our hospitals are doing testing and what they call tracing, which is like figuring out someone who has gotten coronavirus, figuring out everyone they've been in contact with and letting them know that they could be at risk. And then of course treatment. So we are opening up testing sites. The state has a few sites where now you don't need a doctor referral, you just need to make an appointment. In fact, Jim on Monday, as soon as that opened up, he called and made a quick appointment. And I think he's going at some point today to get tested, just to see how it all goes. And I think Tracy, I saw Tracy Carmichael on the call. I think she had a rough experience. They've really rushed these testing sites. So there's bumps in the road. They're not going smoothly. The computer systems are down, for example, but they're doing their best to get things on as quickly as possible. So we're going to work through that. So with that, I'm sure there are questions. There's so much more to be said, but I'll leave it at that and I'll answer questions if that works, Brett.
Sure, guys. So if you have any questions related directly to the county and all these things about businesses opening up, I'd appreciate if you could put some in the chat. And I did see the form, and I wanted to thank Crystal for sending that to me. I posted the form on the Chamber's COVID page yesterday so that it could be available to our businesses as they are entering that process. It is curious that it's just like a self-reporting form, very unique in that regard, but I guess it's better than nothing, right?
Oh, and it is so not government to do that. And that is something that we pushed. Our office was like, how exactly is this going to work? Because business owners need to know so that they can start to prepare. The other thing is the county to date does not have a phone number you can call, a contact with questions. And we asked at the board hearing yesterday that the CAO figure that out and get a contact up for the inevitable questions. Right now, our office is the clearinghouse for questions, it seems. So, which is fine. You can always come to us, but
yeah. Yep. So one question that was put in the chat is there any concern at the county level at this point about we're opening too soon, a second wave, and the ramifications of that?
Huge concern. Great question. Huge concern. This is an interesting balance that we're trying to achieve, because the public health doctors, the safest thing to do is to not open anything up forever, right? But we can't do that. But also, if we open up too quickly, let's take it from the business standpoint. Things and the virus spreads, our hospitals start to be impacted. The governor has shown through the beach issue with Orange County that he'll retract our ability, our flexibility. So if we open up too quickly, if we don't do this right, and there's spread, our vulnerable population really there's many more deaths, and our hospitals are impacted. We're going to have to really slow it down or peel things back. And so I think what you're going to see is things maybe not moving as fast as many businesses would want them to. Although we have confidence that we can do this and we can do it safely. And we have confidence that our businesses, that our people get it, that if given a chance, they will do it right. And I think the grocery stores and Costco and other places have set a really good example. And everyone we talk to has been more than willing to abide by that.
Thank you. So somebody put in there, when do we think we can see guidelines? And you mentioned that the governor said he wouldn't even have guidelines till tomorrow, even though Friday there is when supposedly businesses are allowed to start opening. So we'll see how that works out. But another question that I have, in other countries, they've, taking a little more, strong, proactive approaches to when businesses reopen, like grocery stores actually taking people's temperature and thermo scanning before they'll even allow somebody into their grocery store, things like that. If a store is interested in going that far, is that going to be allowed for them to be that stringent?
Yeah, in fact, you'll see on the requirements sheet, and I'll have to look at if that is, I suspect that's one of the things. At a minimum, you have to take the temperature of your employees. And by the way, they opened golf courses for recreation, but they did so with the requirement that the golfers need to have their temperatures taken, and anyone over 100 degrees is sent away. So I think taking temperatures, you'll see that while that framework is pretty broad, it's also specific enough that I think some of that is in there, and you'll see a checklist.
Great.
Associated.
And then the list of businesses that are allowed to reopen is, like you said, it wasn't meant to be a definitive list, but it was pretty small, like, some retail and some, like you said, bookstores and things like that. But it did have in there, there was some vague wording about almost like anybody who could do it safely. But it did specifically say, it's not yet for, like, say, offices. It's not for dine-in restaurants. Are we getting some guidelines? This question is about ones that specifically can't quite open yet.
We have asked a couple of things. We would like the governor. We listened to his press conferences like everyone else and tried to read between the lines and figure it out. He got specific a week or so ago, not specific, but he listed what he pictured different businesses falling under different phases. But what we're really pushing for is for not the governor to decide it, but we would like to decide that locally. And it's Jim's position that we need to do this safely, but we need to really push ourselves to say, let's get as many of these businesses that can be safe open as soon as possible. And we're seeing plans. We've gotten over 400 or 500 plans. Some of you have probably sent them in, and they're thoughtful and they work. Just looking at it from a customer standpoint, from if everyone does what they need to do, there's a way to do this and make it safe. And the county, I think, is inclined, where the governor has just listed a few things, the county's inclined to try to push that. So if there's a phase 2, we'll look for a 2.5 before we go to 3. And then what happens is you lay those out, and then we watch the data and see how it goes. And these public health doctors, 14 days is a key time period. So my guess is businesses will roll out the first part of the businesses, and then we'll watch to make sure that the hospitals aren't impacted, and we'll watch the infection rate. Although testing is going up, so you kind of have to watch the percentages more than you need to watch how many people get the virus, because as testing goes up, we're just going to find that more people have it along the way. So we're going to push it. We're hopeful that, we'll get restaurants to some degree, like a modified, less capacity dining. Manufacturing is another one. Even offices, maybe with masks and with social distancing. I think we're of the mindset, but ultimately it's our public health doctor that has the authorities. That's another weird part. Normally your elected board, the board of supervisors, would be able to have some control and authority and decision making. Really, we provide input, solicited and unsolicited, and it's up to our single public health doctor, Wilma Wooten.
Gotcha. So 2 other quick questions that we're going to let you off the hook. If a business has any difficulty obtaining PPE equipment, is the county able to help, at least with information on where to find some? And then are there legal/HR concerns surrounding requiring employees to have their temperature taken when they come to work in the morning? And
Yeah,
customers
and
too.
that's a good question. That's a question that was brought up. Are we suddenly is that considered healthcare? I talked to our legal counsel about that, and I got a very county legal counsel answer, and that is businesses, as far as the legal is concerned, the county's not going to give the legal advice on that. Whatever the liabilities are, they're going to have to work through that like any other liability and figure that out. That was kind of the short of the answer. I know that's not. Yeah, that's probably not what you're looking for, but that's the answer, the best answer that I have. That's the legal part. What was the other question, Brett?
Oh, if there's any, if you guys have any guidelines that you can, or direction you can point people in if they're looking for PPE equipment.
PPE, yeah. And that's where start looking for all of that, because everybody's going to be looking for thermometers and other things. The county, I will check to see if the county can help. We ourselves have struggled, and in fact the state is working on masks and things along the way, but we ourselves have struggled along the way to get PPE because it's in such demand across the nation. But it doesn't need to be medical grade, right? We had someone in our office make masks, and I now have a really cool Padres mask that meets all the requirements. And so there's a way to do it, depending, but I'll check, and I'm sure the county will help along the way.
All right. Well, thank you. A couple of our folks are putting into the chat things like one of our attorneys is putting in that, some of these are untested questions that in terms of where we can go with this. Others are saying that their legal counsel is telling them they can't require employees to have their temperature taken. So this will be interesting times across the board. I thank you for your time this morning. We're going to jump to our next speaker. So thank you so much, Darren. And I think I saw that Tasha is already joined us this morning. Tasha, are you able to unmute yourself there? Tasha, are you out there? Did we lose you? I got to go into my gallery mode here, see if I can find her. Alex, I see you. Is Tasha with us? She's not.
Oh, she's not here yet. She'll be on by 8 a.m.
Okay, I think we might have, excuse me, Senator Bates. I thought I saw her phone number. Senator Bates, are you at the 949 phone number? I'm going to unmute that and see. Is that you, Senator Bates?
That is me, Brett. Here I am.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate your time. If you would like to give us some update on what's going on from your perspective at the state level, we've had a lot of conversation just now about things at the county, but a lot of this trickles up to the state. So if you'd like to give us a little update from what you're seeing.
Absolutely. And thanks for the opportunity, you guys, to share some of the activities that the Senate is going to be engaged in, because, we will be opening for business next Monday. The Assembly is already open. Perhaps that's why Tasha's not on, or she came on and had to go off, because committee hearings in a very edited way are going on the Assembly side. We'll start our standing committee hearings on Monday. Member bills will start to be reviewed, and we just received the schedule, by the way, for the May hearings in the Senate, and that came in late yesterday. So if you all need that schedule, I'll ask my staff to provide it to you. It's a very very limited hearings. There'll be approximately 2 per day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, so that the attendance at the hearings will be very limited. I heard the discussion regarding taking temperatures. That will be required for people attending those hearings in person. The hope is that that will be, people will limit their in-present attempt to come to the hearings and use the telephone in, because there will be remote questions provided, opportunities provided. You can actually email those in, or there will be a phone connection for those who are attending and wish to testify or ask questions or present concerns. That will be the same for senators. Only 2 of us, excuse me, will be allowed in with 1 staff member for each of the meetings, usually the chair and another member, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. So it's very, very controlled to follow the health protocols, ensure that the Capitol certainly stays absent of any virus. So far, so good, you guys, but it is very touch and go, very much like the businesses. We're open for business, but very strict protocols are in place. There will be no floor sessions until probably June. None are currently scheduled on our side anyway. We expect there will be one in June because the budget is required to be passed, as you know, by June 15th. And many of the meetings that are scheduled between now and then are the budget meetings, the budget sub-meetings, where a lot of the presentation on what's available and what isn't available in terms of revenues will be hotly debated. Later today, I will be participating remotely as Vice Chair of the new Senate Special Committee on Pandemic Emergency Response. The hearing will focus specifically on the testing and the contact tracing. You've heard from the governor and our county health officers that those 2 activities are extremely important in terms of keeping businesses open and moving to phase 3 and 4 and controlling the virus spread, certainly. I heard the comments regarding PPE. We will be looking at that whole issue. As you know, there's been an interruption in the supply chain. It's still very elusive of where some of those PPEs go. I know in my community, I was offered N95 masks for a mere cost of $8. And I thought, why are they here in our community at a medical supply company when they should be with a county that was struggling at that time to ensure those masks got to our first line, our first responders and our frontline health people. But the governor has been working on that. So those will be things that we discuss. And today we will have presentations by experts in the field about how we move from where we are now forward, what we did right, what needs to be improved, and certainly the PPE issue will probably be a big focus on the discussion of what we need to do better on that. I want to thank all of you in terms of the businesses opening. The North County Chambers, when you came together, sent us a letter on April 24th regarding more opportunities for businesses to open, asking us to weigh in with the governor, advocate for establishing health protocols that could move business more quickly to open. And I want you to know, raising your voices with your partner chambers is very, very important. It made a huge difference. It certainly gives us who are on the front lines trying to advocate to overcome some of these problems that have occurred because of the virus to weigh in directly with the governor. I'd like to say that he listened as we conveyed the message, and it was, I think, very reassuring. Was it last week when in his press conference, that was on Thursday or Friday, when he said it's now going to be days, not just weeks and perhaps months, when we start moving into phase 2 and getting businesses open. And as I heard discussion prior to my coming on, there is a guidance that will be issued, and that's supposed to come out tomorrow. It will be very important because in the first presentation, it sounded like we could open these low-risk businesses, but it is still order and then curbside pickup. And I'm not sure that was, widely spread in terms of the information. So that'll be, I think, more specific tomorrow in terms of the guidance and the plans that need to be presented to ensure that people are following those health protocols in their various establishments. And we all know, we go to the markets, the pharmacy, Costco. It is done very well. Actually, one of the banks in my community, we have 3 different banks, but the Bank of America is open, and it's the only one that's open compared to a couple of the others, but they have very strict control in there. They don't take our temperature, but everything is designed so that you have the distance, all the plastic separators are out. So some businesses may need to do that. We're seeing that at the stores. It just depends on whether they have that much face-to-face contact. There's also a Senate Special Budget Subcommittee on the state's COVID-19 response. It's in addition to the standing budget subcommittees, and they will begin meeting very regularly. But this particular special committee that the Pro Tem set up is focused principally on the expenditures and funding that's related to the pandemic. And before the pandemic, we had around 17 billion in the reserve rainy day account. However, the governor has said the May budget revise that he will present, that comes out May 15th. He said it's calamitous. I hadn't heard that word in a long time. So we are expecting that there will be major spending reductions and that he will present. And that, of course, begins the debate on what are the spending priorities that he sees, and will the legislators agree on that? Will there be major or minor changes to get the budget approved by the deadline of June 15th? And so that's our annual dance, as we call it. But up front, of course, the concerns are over education. I think for our counties, the safety net for social services on that realignment that has gone on, very, very concerning. And healthcare, we heard the hospitals, that was announced yesterday. They have been very reduced in terms of their attendance and the other health needs that we have. People have not been going, as you know, afraid that they'd be in an emergency room or have, some particular issue that needed to be cared for, and they're afraid of contracting the virus. So the hospitals are saying the hit to them is $1 billion, and that's what they're asking the legislature to come up with as they review the budget. So you can expect, I think we'll all expect, that we'll have some pretty emotional discussions on what is a priority, and we'll have a lot of people testifying on that. I did meet with a telephone conference with the Education Coalition for North County last week, and it was pretty dire in terms of the things that they're looking at if the funding is adjusted or adjusted downward for education. So we'll all be there advocating strongly for what are the most important revenue needs for our local governments, for certainly to help our businesses more than we have. All of that will be very top of the agenda. With regard to the Senate members' legislative packages, we were asked to reduce the number of bills we were presenting to accommodate, which is a very limited time to hear bills. Yesterday at our meeting with the Pro Tem, she advised that we have actually trimmed our budget package down to just 230 bills. It was up around 800 or 900 at the end of when the timeline for submitting those passed. So we are required to process all of those and send them to the Assembly by June 26th, is the date of origin in which your bill needs to leave the House in which it was introduced. And so at that point in time, we'll be receiving Assembly bills from the Assembly, of course. And we're not sure whether their bill packages were limited significantly, or if we're going to get quite a few coming over from their side, less than we'll be sending, because of those 230 bills, some of them will not receive a passing support at the committees they're being heard in. So that's all up in the air, but each person kind of focused their their bill package on what they consider to be so high priority. That would be something along the lines of housing and homeless, the wildfires. For our termed out members, they'll be given a little leeway because this is their last opportunity, because they'll be terming out at the end of this session. So there'll be a variety of bills, but they all will be focused on a pretty narrow agenda. Finally, one of the policy issues that will vie for much committee discussion if it gets to committee, and that's AB 5. And we've talked a lot about the independent contractor issues and how they have been especially harmed during the pandemic, so that we do have the new provision, the PUA, pandemic unemployment assistance for independent contractors and self-employed. But the governor has not indicated in any fashion that he is open to or willing to discuss AB 5. There are about 12 bills that are on within those 230 bills that have been introduced as priority needs. And those are generally from, on our side, there's 12. They range from an interim suspension to more exemptions and outright appeal. So we will see where all of that goes. But it is very important, again, that the governor here on any one of the issues that are very, very important to our chamber members, that you do write those letters, you do raise your voice. This has shown during this time on a number of fronts how important it is for the governor to hear from all of us. The Senate sent a letter regarding the opening of restaurants, and I understand that the governor called the chief author of that. That was Andreas Borges, and we all signed on to that letter, and he called his office that very evening when he received that letter, saying that he was working on a program, a process for restaurants so that more could open, and that they have been moved into phase 2 with more curbside delivery and presenting a plan. Here in the county, you'll self-certify that you have set up your low-risk business or restaurant to meet all of these protocols. Hopefully that will move us closer to phase 3. And if everyone follows the rules, I think we'll see the governor's statement that will be days rather than weeks and months. Maybe we go to just a few more weeks and we'll have moved into phase 3, looking at phase 4 of his plan for reopening.
Perfect.
With that, that kind of goes over.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was a really good overview on everything going on. I understand the need to reduce the number of bills being introduced, and I know that's that can be a challenge because the various legislators were used to being able to introduce quite a few bills, but with the curtailed legislative season, it makes sense. And we do have a couple of state questions that have popped up, but I want to get to Tasha's, and then as we have time for questions, then we can go ahead and have one or both of you address them if you have time. Matthew has said that in the chat that Matthew Fye, who works for Senator Bates, that the Senate committee hearing schedule will be sent to me, and then I can share it with chamber members, because a couple people in the chat said they wanted to hear that. And yes, AB 5 is a big issue, so thank you for bringing it up, and hopefully we can get some traction on that. I thank you for your time and joining us today, and I'm going to ask if Tasha can unmute herself. That would be awesome. Tasha.
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, and Pat, thank you so much for that great summary. You covered so much ground that I don't need to cover, and I can assure you the Assembly has cut back our bill package, much like you. There's always this funny rivalry between the Senate and the Assembly, and they always complain that we send over too many bills, and we say there's twice as many of us than you, and then it goes back and forth. But we've all cut down our bill package. Speakers asked us to do that as well. So I went from 17 bills. I think we have 4 bills plus 2 two-year bills that I had in the Senate last year that we could use as we go through, and we're learning more about what economic recovery looks like. So I've been spending a majority of my time doing kind of a special project for the speaker on what is the overall picture of economic recovery look like. And it's not very rosy for our businesses, for our state. I think I was on the same call with the governor that Pat was on, where the governor used the word calamitous. I also haven't heard that word. It may not have been spoken since 1935. And he's talking about tens of billions of dollars in budget cuts in the May revise. And so, you know, that is a position, I think people who were in the legislature, people who were involved in 2006, 2007, 2008, through that recession, they're going to know the pain that we're going to face in making really hard decisions. And I think one of the things that I'm focusing on is, of course, you know, what projections can we, you know, make now about the effects to the economy of the pandemic? Most projections show that the earliest we get a vaccine is next year in March. So if we look at the phases, that's kind of what we're looking at, is you know, that's the earliest we get it. Pfizer did come out with phase 1-2 testing of a vaccine. They started last week in Germany, this week in the US. Is that, if everything goes perfectly on track, that comes, that gets to market then sometime end of the year. But that's a very, very optimistic schedule for testing a vaccine. And basically the entire world would have to get vaccinated. So you also have the production of the vaccine and the implementation. And we know that there are some folks that have questions about vaccines. So, you know, I think that would bring up a lot of issues. Gilead did come out with it. There was a failed Ebola drug. So basically, it was a really good drug, but didn't work really well on Ebola. Apparently works better on COVID-19. Fauci has said that's a game changer. What it does is it shortens recovery. So it's still not treating the symptoms, right? The symptoms of COVID-19 are still, you know, you're in the hospital, you're in the ICU, you're drowning in your own fluids. The only thing we could do is put a tube down your throat. This lessens the recovery time, not necessarily the severity of the disease. So I know Genentech is also working on Actemra, which is an antiviral. And I think and the reason I bring up those therapeutics is those are going to be the game changers for our business community to get back on track in something shorter than an 18-month period of the pandemic. So we look at economic recovery. We've been looking a lot of what does it mean for the retail sector? What does it mean for the restaurants? What does it mean for hospitality? Because those are the three big sectors. Obviously, in my district, biotech and pharma have largely, you know, those are other, you know, those are all things that have been considered essential infrastructure. So they haven't been affected as much as the pandemic by the pandemic as some of our small mom and pop businesses. And so when we look at that, we're kind of taking, you know, I have a meeting, I think on Thursday when I get back in San Diego, with North County EDC, UCSD Extension to kind of look at what does retraining look like? Because most, I'm not sure everybody's aware of this, most public health models shows a resurgence of COVID-19, like a second peak in the fall. There's not one public health model that doesn't show that second peak. Now, we're doing a lot to prepare for it so that we can manage the second peak in a way that we didn't have time to do this first time, so it will look different. But, you know, I don't think our economy can take, you know, like closing down the businesses, closing down, paying unemployment to everybody again. So how do we start retraining with a workforce in that second peak where people may not be working as much, so that when they come out of this pandemic, we actually have a workforce that's more trained toward a different direction of emerging economy versus declining economies. So we're doing some work on that, which I think is really important. And then I'll be presenting that to my other legislators to kind of make sure we're thinking on the assembly side of a different, kind of on the, we don't lose sight of the forest through the trees of the May revise and that. With my bill package, I've reoriented, as I said, I've decreased it to just 4 bills plus the bills I had from my 2-year bills from last year. But one of those bills we're going to change to look and see how do we continue to incentivize telework as we go forward post COVID-19, because we've seen obviously a very big reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. LA has no smog for the first time in my lifetime. So how do we continue that? Because when you think about public investment of taxpayer dollars, the more people that can work from home, the less investment you need in our road infrastructure. And those are taxpayer dollars paying for it. So maybe they can go to something else. And so we're looking at telework, and we're working with the chamber that. I also have a sexual assault victims bill that I'm working on with the DA, Summer Stephan, and San Diego County. I have a bill on San Diego Free State Park. That was a 2-year bill from last year. And a couple other ones that we're still moving because they're still relevant regardless of the pandemic. But as I said, we are looking at, how do you do in San Diego some retraining programs of the workforce. So we're making sure we're training up the talent for the emerging businesses, because I do think we're going to see some shifts in our types of businesses that we have. And I know Maricosta is here to support. That's right, Kristen. We're very lucky that we have Maricosta. They have been one of the most innovative community colleges in the state. And I think it's really important that, their biomanufacturing program has been essential to drawing businesses to Carlsbad. There's a reason, like Thermo Fisher is working on, planning for vaccine production. Genentech is doing the therapeutics. We have so many really important biomanufacturing in the district, and that's partially because the actual logic of business attraction is business will go where the employees are trained up. They will go where the labor demand is, unless they're barring some other, factor that they need proximity to a train station, proximity to that. And so that's going to be a key component when we're looking at this and going forward.
Tasha, let me ask you a question if I can.
Let me just remember one thing. We're doing a workshop next week on reimagining restaurants during and post COVID-19. So we'll be getting an invite hopefully to that. Go ahead, Brett.
Perfect. And if Alex, if you wouldn't mind typing that into the chat for everybody that she just mentioned, that would be appreciated. That would be great. But the details of that, I mean, Senator Bates mentioned, and you touched on the budget issues that are going to be hitting the state. And if I remember correctly, the number one thing in our budget is schools. And Senator Bates mentioned that they're concerned. Schools were already kind of hurting budget-wise, for various and different ones at different levels of hurt or doing okay. But and now it sounds like there's going to be a move towards, trying to encourage schools to adapt to a COVID-19 existence in the fall, which isn't quite defined yet. So it could involve different infrastructure upgrades and changes for them. So it sounds like they're looking at more expenditures and considerably less revenue. Is that kind of what we're seeing?
Yes. I'm not sure this is what I really wanted for my first term in the legislature. I was really happy with getting money for the district. But yeah, I mean, Pat maybe can speak more to what she anticipates coming. I'm a very strong supporter of public education, so it's not something I want to see cut. And I think we have to be able, because it's return on investment, right? Like that's how I look at the education is that the money we put in education now gets us tenfold in the future. And so I don't really want to do this. So we are having a teletown hall this Thursday with our superintendent of public instruction, Tony Thurman. Also Colleen from the 9th District PTA. We have a teacher and from UCSD, a child and adolescent psychologist to talk about success for students in COVID-19. And we can ask Tony Thurman all the hard questions. Actually, Tony's brother lives in Carlsbad. So it's actually very good for us that the superintendent of public instruction, who's making a lot of these decisions about distance learning, all this, actually has a very strong connection to the district. So We're going to be doing this Thursday. The date for the workshop for restaurants next week has not been set, but Alex will, of course, let you all know. I think we have a meeting this afternoon to get it all finalized. Because it's the restaurant workshop is the first one we've done in this kind. It's going to be like a Zoom webinar, and it's by RSVP only, and it's only for restaurants in my district. So we're not going to have restaurants from elsewhere. People just can't dial in. If they feel like it, they'll need to RSVP. Because the person that I'm bringing in to do it, she'll have a worksheet, and will help businesses, work through this. Because I think, as a business owner myself, and having started two small businesses, only businesses who innovate during this time will survive. Businesses that want to keep doing the same old probably won't survive, because, and this is under the assumption that we're having an 18-month time frame, right? I think it's very different when you look at a vaccine comes out in December. I think that's a very different scenario. I'm just not sure that actually happens. And so if you're looking at an 18-month time frame, and you think about curbside pickup for months, and you think about restaurants reopening, not in the early phase one, later phase one, you think about some of those things, and you can realize that businesses will need to innovate to maintain profitability. We're going to have to be more flexible, so we're going to also be looking at what are some of the impediments to flexibility. And so if people have thoughts on that, please send it to me. And so, yeah, I think there's going to need to be a lot of innovation. The good news is that's what we're known for in North County. Our businesses come up with new ideas, and they change with the times all the time. So I think we're well poised for that.
Well, thank you very much
yeah.
for taking the time to join us and update us. And both you and Senator Bates, we appreciate your hard work for our district and for our area. And we do want to go ahead and move to some city stuff now. So if you wouldn't mind just putting yourself there on mute. And I did see Alex say that she will email me information about the restaurant meeting. And when I have the info from Matthew and from Alex, I will share it with everybody who's on our government affairs list. And I didn't see Mayor Matt Hall on the meeting, but I could be wrong. Mayor Hall, are you? I see Jason, and I know David Graham's going to give us an update on a presentation here in a second. Was I wrong, Mayor Hall? No, I don't see him. Jason, do you want to unmute yourself and give us just a brief on the council meeting yesterday before David Graham gives us the details of the program?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm not prepared to give a briefing on last night's council meeting, but I could pull together some notes on that. I will give you just really quickly a few updates on some of the legislative advocacy work that we're doing at the city. We've had, ongoing continuous conversations, constructive with both Tasha's office and Senator Bates's office, advocating for a variety of types of regulatory relief in terms of city operations, and that's in coordination with work being done by the League of California Cities. Also a lot of good coordination and collaboration around, at first closing our beaches throughout Carlsbad, and then recently this week, or last week, this week, I guess, reopening those beaches. So really appreciative for that. On the federal level, in constant conversation with Congressman Levin's office, and you'll see a joint statement going out that includes Mayor Hall's name in request of federal support for funding to close some of the gaps on lost revenue that the city is experiencing, and other needs in terms of the new expenses that we're incurring in responding to COVID-19. So again, appreciative for that. Our legislative subcommittee, city council subcommittee, next week is meeting, and we'll be considering a handful of recommendations that came out of an economic recovery subcommittee that David is working with, related to a small handful of things. One, looking for regulatory or legislative relief and support for businesses that are experiencing business interruptions and have been given insurance denials in terms of claims for that interruption. Some help with, let's see, protecting against healthcare premium increases, and then a couple of aspects related to map extensions and local permit extensions being streamlined through legislative provisions. So with that, that's the update on the legislative side. And if you give me a moment, I'll think through our agenda from last night and try and pull together an update on you for that.
No, that's fine. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. And I know that, the biggest item yesterday is what David's going to share with us now. And so we can transition to that. And, if any questions pop up, Jason, you can kind of just, if you don't mind hanging on and then possibly answering them. But David's going to go ahead and share his screen and unmute himself. I saw it pop up there for a second. David, did it not let you?
I'm here. Hey, everybody.
There you go. Perfect. And
David Graham. Oh, sorry.
I'm going to let you take it away. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Thanks so much, Brett. David Graham, Chief Innovation Officer. I head up the Office of Innovation and Economic Development for the City of Carlsbad, and it's great to be with all of you. Just a quick rundown of one of the main things that the city has been doing specific to economic recovery and revitalization. Back on April 7th, they created an ad hoc subcommittee, which Mayor Hall and Councilmember Bhat Patel serve on. They've now had 5 meetings working through a overall economic recovery and revitalization initiative, which the council approved on April 21st, and they provided direction to bring back several items. Also, we jointly with the Chamber and the CVA have been providing joint communications, which has been great to show a unified front on what is the city, the Chamber, and the CVA are doing to support businesses. We've also added webinars with live polling. We've gone through 2 of those. We'll have those basically every other week. Those have been really helpful to provide information to the council and to the subcommittee on ideas for economic recovery and revitalization. Last night, the city considered funding of the overall program and several business loan proposals. So the overall program, the council last night approved essentially funding it with 88% of $5 million going towards a business loan program, reserving $250,000 for future city council decisions, $250,000 for a joint marketing and business promotion strategy developed by our businesses, the Chamber, the CVA, and Visit Carlsbad. And we're also working to partner with an organization to help with mediation and renegotiation services. And then there's some city lessees who've requested relief. And so there's a percentage of the overall $5 million committed to economic recovery and revitalization that has been committed to that. So as many of you know, the largest chunk of money that is going to supporting businesses, and some have been approved, some have not been approved, some have been approved and funded, really are the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program. My team is consistently working with our businesses. So we have about 110 we're directly working with to help with things like supporting assistance on applying for these sorts of programs, answering questions about essential versus non-essential businesses, answering questions about the city's moratorium on commercial evictions, and other business-related questions. If you do have any questions that the city can help out with, please email business@carlsbadca.gov. I will put that in the chat in just a couple of minutes. But we recognize that some won't be able to receive these programs, will not be awarded from these programs, or that there's additional assistance that is needed, which is why when we think about the economic uncertainty that we're facing, it is very, very significant. Obviously, the closure of all non-essential businesses. We're very interested to see what happens with the governor's order on Thursday. But ultimately, there's a public benefit to the city stepping in to fill in a gap for either extending beyond what the PPP and EIDL can support, or for those who do not receive those loans. So We've been working with the subcommittee members. The Chamber and the CVA have been very instrumental in designing this program. Thank you, Brett and Christine, for your ongoing support. We've heard directly from the business community, and our staff has done a lot of research about other similar business loan programs around the state. When you look at those who have decided to participate, there are a number in North County, and generally you're looking at somewhere between a $1 to $5 million program if you're looking at what the county is currently doing right now. So I'll move on to the actual loan programs. To be eligible, you must demonstrate economic impact due to COVID-19. The subcommittee and the council decided small business should be the initial focus. Obviously, you must have a valid business license as of March 1, be in good standing with the city, so current with all city fees, no outstanding litigations, code enforcement violations, or the like. If you do apply for PPP or EIDL, you can also apply for the city program, but you can't essentially double dip and cover the same costs you did under PPP and EIDL. And we're also focused on awarding to those who did not receive support from those federal assistance programs. So last night, council approved the development of two programs. The first is a small business microloan for businesses of 2 million or less in gross revenue. It's approximately 2,700 businesses in Carlsbad or 15 or fewer employees. The loan amounts are between $5,000 to $10,000. And the terms are basically you can defer the first payment for 90 days. Council last night tacked on an additional 90 days at staff discretion for things like additional hardship or businesses that are still closed. If you pay it back within 6 months, it's 0% interest, 1% if within 12 months, and 2% payback within 18 months. And basically those interest terms are tied to trying to provide short-term 0% up to effectively what the city would be earning on its money if it were in the investment portfolio. Initially, approximately $1.5 million will be going towards this program, which represents between 150 and 300 loans. And the eligible expenses are rent, payroll, mortgage interest, and utilities. So scaling up to a little bit of larger program, they also approved the Small Business Recovery Loans program for those with $3 million or less in gross revenue. That's approximately 3,600 businesses. And 50 or fewer employees. There, the loan amounts are between $10,000 to $25,000. Here, again, you can defer the first payment for 90 days at staff discretion up to 180 days. But in this particular case, since it's a larger amount, payback is 2% for 12 months, 3% within 30 months. Initial funding here is approximately $2 million, which is 800 to 200 loans, and the same sort of eligible expenses would be, you could use the loan amounts to cover. So when you kind of look at where these two programs fall, it's really kind of in a very competitive with what other cities are doing, and definitely competitive with what the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program does. Additionally, I should mention that we will continue to evaluate these programs and look at potentially an offering of up to $50,000 depending upon the volume and activity. We'll also work to try to find ways to leverage the remaining dollars in the program. And there will be a lending organization that we partner with to provide this. We would like the application to be simple and online. So the next steps really are, we are currently working to secure a lending partner that will be completed by May 15th. And our approach is to try to have the program stood up and live with application no later than May 25th. We will know more information as we work through this week to finish evaluation on lending partners and negotiating the contract there. So with that, I just want to mention on the administration, we do expect that just with this initial tranche of funding, there could be up to between 230 and 500 awardees. Total applications could be much higher than that if we're using the data that we have regarding how many people are intending to or have applied to the federal programs. And we are working with several potential partners to administer the loan program. So with that, I will stop the share and open it up for any questions that people may have.
Great, thank you, David. Thank you very much. Guys, any questions you have, let's go ahead and put them in the chat. So you mentioned, so the main timeline right now is, I mean, we got approval. So that was step one. Step two is finalizing who the applications will go through, which you're working on currently, and you anticipate at the latest May 15th. Could be earlier though, is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. And then of course, depending on when that gets finalized in terms of the who and the how for the actual application, then how soon loans could actually be approved and activated.
Correct. And so we'll continue to engage with the chamber to push that information out. And we'll also push it out via our joint business communications. I will put the email in there if you want to be on that list. As soon as we get additional information, we'll provide that.
That's excellent. And then, so a couple questions are popping up in the chat. You can probably see them, but is it first come, first serve, or will there be another prioritization be applied?
We're working through that. What we've seen with the other programs is first come, first serve is not exactly the best approach. So there will be some additional prioritization within that first come, first serve.
And then another question, will any of this loan be forgivable?
No, it will not.
Okay, so it's a loan program, so there's no grant aspect to it. Okay, great. Any other questions you guys have there that, David, before we lose them? Okay, I've always bragged about the city's fiscal responsibility. At what point does the city's budget become calamitous?
Well, a couple of things that are really important there. Yes, the city has done an incredible job there and continues to. The funding for this program is actually coming out of the city's economic uncertainty set aside, which both the two major, well, that is the source basically for all COVID related issues right now. That was at 19 million. The council committed $3 million from that set aside that is set aside specifically for things exactly like this. The additional $5 million has also gone towards this program. And there's a few other things, but effectively we still have in a set aside specifically for economic uncertainty, $11 million. And there definitely will be additional impacts, but the very forward-thinking city council over many years has prepared for events like this. And so these funds are not coming from cuts to any other services or activities of the city, specifically from a set aside specifically for these sorts of events.
So somebody's putting in the chat, which a little bit you've touched on, where can we expect to apply for that loan so that we can monitor the website? So Ken, we will, once that's finalized, there, David did mention they're still finalizing the who and the how. And so once that's finalized, we'll definitely be sharing that info because he'll share it with us and we'll share it with everybody. So that's still to come. Let's see. So somebody else is asking in the chat, looks like this one's private, so you probably can't see it, but if there was a lender interested in excuse me, possibly being part of the program, like to be a front end to this program, how would they contact you or how would that work?
Just email and I'll answer in the chat. Email business@carlsbadca.gov.
Gotcha. Perfect.
We are primarily looking at lending organizations, nonprofit lending organizations, or those with micro lending experience, but we'll evaluate anyone.
Perfect. So if there's any of you out there know banks that would like to be involved, you know, let's connect them to David and he can check it out and see if that would be good. And then we've talked offline about a couple things. They didn't come up specifically in your criteria. So I thought I'll ask just for the benefit of everybody on here. If a business is home-based and doesn't actually have an office or a brick and mortar, would they be eligible for this program?
Yeah, so we're still evaluating and working through the numbers on home-based. Obviously, when you look at what the funds are for, it's primarily things that are related to brick and mortar, with the real exception maybe of payroll. So we would evaluate the nature of a home-based business and whether this program is appropriate for that. But at this point, they would be able to apply.
Okay, so it's not an exclusion right off the bat, but it'll be evaluated. Great, got it. Thank you. Are there any other factors that somebody should be considering that weren't immediately obvious? Like immediately, of course, is there how much their revenues, how many employees they have, and they have to have a city license. But any other factors that you think are important?
Length of time that they've been in operation, whether they, things like, and this is for normal sorts of underwriting, the business credit rating and history, what sort, if any, is necessary of guarantee that can be put up. All of these are factors for the underwriting of the loan.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys. Any other questions for David while we have him here? You don't want to let him off too lightly. So I see Tasha. Can you see Tasha's question? If a home-based business is a sole proprietor, they can apply for the PUA. That's true. Thank you, Tasha, for pointing that out. So, and David and I discussed that offline for like self-employed folks and independent contractors who've been affected. They can apply for the PUA, which for those that don't know what the PUA is, the PUA is basically unemployment insurance for self-employed folks, which before COVID-19 would not be allowed, but now, is. So, so thank you for pointing that out, Tasha. Let's see. Yes, there's a chat item about our need to help match people up with business needs with those who can provide them, and this, both the city and the chamber are very willing to help do that. Excuse me. So we're very interested in that. Here's a question that was not put. It was put out privately, David, so you can't see it, but I think it is a valid question. With Christy moving on to a different position, you've had an opening for an economic development director. Has there been any progress on that, or is it just on hold for the moment?
Yes, we have made an offer to an individual who's currently going through background, and I'm looking forward to that being cleared so that I can announce that via the joint communications and with the chamber. Very person with a long history in economic development and also history in San Diego County. So very pleased with individual, and we'll be able to announce that soon.
Very nice. And yes, if you aren't watching the chat right now, a question was put and David did answer it, that what about small locally owned franchised businesses? And at this point, they are eligible to go ahead and apply for the Carlsbad program. So just because you're a franchise does not mean you have been disqualified. So please feel free to apply when that time comes. And also just I'll mention in the chat, if you're not able to see it, that Alex Kiwan from Tasha's office is offering to help anybody if they're having troubles with EDD, and especially with the PUA program for sole proprietors and self-employed folks, etc. So thank you very much. And I did see late as David was presenting, I think I saw that Mayor Hall might have joined us. I don't know. Mayor Hall, are you with us? Let's see if I can find him.
No, I don't. This is Jason. Sorry, I don't believe the mayor's with us this morning.
Okay. His name did pop up while David was presenting, but might not have been able to join in. Okay, great. All right, guys. David, that was a great presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And then, is anybody else have a question across the board for anybody? I do see Lynn Pittman had just entered into the chat that, let's see, oh, where to go? Sorry. that the SBDC is helping thousands of small business owners with all the different programs. And we have a great SBDC here with an office right here in Carlsbad. So thank you, Lynn, for pointing that out. But they've been working with the PPP, the EIDL, and I don't know what the PUI is. Maybe it's PUA, or maybe it's another one. I can't keep up with all the acronyms. But anyways, they're doing great work there. So please reach out to them. Deb Bedeau has a comment here regarding calamitous condition of the state budget. The governor should start with payroll cuts like the rest of us had to do. I'll share that with him. And those of you who are state legislators on here, you can possibly carry that message back to the governor. Let's see. John Osborne, you want to give a quick update on AB 2421? Yes, John, go ahead and unmute yourself if you could do it. Just a couple of minutes, that would be great.
Sure. So AB 2421 is a bill designed to assist the carriers with placing permanent generators at cell sites to provide continuous power. With the public safety power shutoffs that we've experienced across the state, our macro cell sites that have been geared to run on commercial power find themselves needing more than just what our battery backups can provide. And we have had permitting challenges across the state with some 600 cities and municipalities who are in the permitting process for their particular geographic area. And this bill would streamline the process to allow the carriers, if they follow the city's application process and put in a CARB compliant generator, which is defined as 50 horsepower or less, then the cities would be required to approve those within 60 days. And if they don't approve them within 60 days, then the permits would be deemed approved, and the carriers could go ahead and provide the backup power. So this is important from a safety standpoint, from access to 911 and emergency alerts. We've experienced fires in everywhere from the city of Carlsbad all across the state and into the rural areas. But this would provide an incentivized approach for the carriers and also for the cities to work together and finally provide this backup power solution for our wireless communications. So I want to recognize Brett for his efforts in working with 5 other 78 corridor chambers and signing on to a joint letter in support of AB 2421. And just wanted to make you all aware of that. So that's it. Thank you, Brett.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Appreciate that, that update. If you have an update for the good of the cause, if you want to just quickly mention it in chat, and we can, if it's brief, then we can have you unmute yourself and share with everybody. More than first, I'll do a quick update while we are, I give you a moment to figure out if you have something. Okay, I see you reset, but the chamber has switched its state of the community. No, sorry, it's a CBAD award luncheon that was supposed to take place in March to a virtual event, and that virtual event will be the CBAD award, the virtual CBAD award week, which will be May 19th to May 23rd, and you're going to see emails and things coming out about that. So instead of trying to just do a one-day award show like we would have done in person, we're doing it from noon to 1 p.m. Each day for 4 days. And Tuesday the 19th will be all focused on education. Wednesday the 20th will be focused on business. Thursday the 21st will be focused on the community. And Friday, the 22nd, will be focused on networking and other community aspects. So it's going to be different, but I think it's going to be pretty exciting. It'll be 45 minutes to an hour each of those days, and so you'll see more info coming out. Risa, if you can give us a 2-minute update, go ahead and unmute yourself and go for it.
Hi, everyone. I will be very brief, and I know this sounds something that most of us don't ever think about, but with businesses that have been closed now for some time, it's going to be really, really important that they flush their pipes before you open up for business. There could be potentially be some water quality issues and some risk associated with it. So we are going to be putting together some communications that we can share with the chamber and to other stakeholders, so you can get that information out to the business community, but the importance of doing this. And we'll be working with all of our member agencies throughout the region to help push out that message starting later this week. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, but the importance of doing this is really just to ensure to maintain the water quality for the water system that you have at your facility. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Risa. Perfect. And I did see Amber had joined us. Amber, do you want to give us a 2-minute update on how healthcare is going in the whole county? I want you to update us for everybody. Can you take that?
I probably can't update for everybody, but I do have a few things I'd be happy to share. So first, just a thank you. This is an extremely challenging time. And so I want to thank you on behalf of all of the healthcare providers. So many people on this call have reached out. I can't tell you how many times folks have done drive-bys for our nurses and our physicians and dropped off food and flowers. I mean, the outpouring of support has been so wonderful because it is, again, challenging and our frontline folks are dealing with it. I will tell you, our concerns for our response continue to grow. Our caseload has continued to grow. We are seeing a lot of increases in cases in the South Bay. Our hospital in Chula Vista, currently our ICU COVID unit is full, and we are transitioning patients up to all of our other hospitals. So I just want to implore you to understand that, I think the work that's being done to prepare and plan is very important, but we're still certainly seeing quite an impact on the healthcare side, and we're working with folks at the federal, state, and local level to address the concerns that we see in the South Bay communities, and also the impacts that that our neighbors in Baja are experiencing. So that was let's see, I think that covers most of what I wanted to share with you, but mostly just a thank you for all of your support. We've just been so grateful to the community for what you've done for us.
Thank you, Amber. Appreciate that and appreciate all you guys' hard work. And Sue Lofton had a little legislative update she wanted to share with everybody. Sue, can you unmute yourself and go ahead and share?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Briefly, there are a number of bills pending. One is specifically AB 2421, trying to impose long-term rent control or impose not repaying rent that has not been collected. I'm seeing a significant impact on multifamily properties that impacts, from the impacts we already have, that impacts our businesses by not having or providing housing. I've received we represent all over the state, but we've already had 4 multifamily housing units that are probably going to have to go into BK. So the bills are harsh, and there's not a relief portion for the business sector on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for that update. I will actually, I think you said AB 2421, is that correct? You're muted. You're muted still.
I'm sorry, it's AB 1482.
Thank you. 1482. I will look that up. And I see.
I can send you a list of the bills, Brett.
Okay. And Christine asked, where can you get more info? Christine, I'll look that up, AB 1482, and then I'll share it with everybody on our government affairs list. Yep. John, we got that bill number corrected. 1482 was passed last year. Okay, so Sue, look it up, find me the number, send it to me, and I'll send it to everybody else.
Okay, perfect.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And lots of great updates. This is a time of transition, and we're all in this together. I appreciate the time of our county folks, our state folks, our city team, stick with us as we get the info out on the new Carlsbad specific economic stability plan that has just passed by the council last night. We'll be sharing it as much as we have as soon as we get it, and we'll keep everybody up to date. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. Well, the last thing is, it's very possible that June government affairs meeting will also still be remote like this. So, but just keep your eye out for notices, and we'll let you know a few days in advance what our speakers are and if we're doing Zoom or in person, but more than likely at that point, it'll still be Zoom. So thanks everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thanks, Brad. Bye, everyone.